match, Spurs, Manchester United at Wembley.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a game, John, and it makes Ole Gunnar Solskjær start a record. He's the first Manchester United manager to win 6 on the trot. In fact, I think he's the first to win 5 on the trot. He's done well since he arrived.
Yeah, he has done well. You couldn't ask him to do more than he's done, Eamon. You would have to say he was very fortunate with the fixture list that he had ahead of him. I think Manchester United were clever in what they did, to be quite honest, Eamon. I think they were a bit worried if they left Mourinho there and he could get good results in those matches.
Yep.
It'd be very hard to sack him.
Yep.
But no, you couldn't ask any more of Solskjaer since he's gone in.
Now, the thing I detect more than anything, John, and you're right about the first 4 games in particular, and of course Reading in the FA Cup at home. The thing I detect most is the players aren't afraid anymore. There's a bit of swagger about them, and of course, you know, the way he's used Marcus Rashford as an out-and-out centre forward, left Lukaku on the bench, left Sanchez on the bench, and there's a freedom about them. They look like they're enjoying football. Now, that old cliche, we want to play football with a smile on their face, is it's a bit of shorthand, I think.
Yeah.
He's liberated them. I think, for example, if Mourinho had gone to Wembley yesterday to play Spurs, they'd have been very tight at the back and concerned, first of all, with not conceding. They didn't play like that yesterday. They had a plan to exploit Spurs' system. It involved using the pace of Rashford and Martial, and to a lesser extent Lingard, and for 45 minutes it worked.
Well, they played well for the first 45 minutes, Eamon. I think it's a situation in football that when the manager goes, which they obviously hadn't been getting on with, Eamon, to say the least, that the players now obviously have a freedom to do it. Because in Mourinho's case, Eamon, I think we spoke about it before. I think I made a list of 10 players that he fell out with and criticised publicly. And they have a saying now, he's lost the dressing room. And there's no doubt about that. I mean, players are human, and you can't get the best out of them if you're humiliating them publicly.
Yes.
So that's the start. I think in Solskjaer's place, he seems a likeable lad.
Yep.
And when you do come into a new job like this, of course everything is rosy because you haven't fallen out with any of them, and he's not likely to fall out with them. And I think from the players' point of view, I think they really want to show, Eamon, that it was the manager's fault.
Yes.
You know, that's a natural thing with players. They think, oh, well, okay, he's gone. We'll really start playing now. So Mourinho was his own fault. The way he handled the situation was bad. And Solskjaer's come in, I think, has been ideal for the situation they're in now. Now, how long it's going to last, Damon, or whether he's going to get the job in the future, it remains to be seen. But if he gets the job for the future, it becomes a different job altogether.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because now you do have to fall out with players a little bit because you've got to leave them out of the team, and a lot of players are not going to be happy. So it is a honeymoon period that he has made the most of. There's no doubt. I mean, but if I hear a smile on your face once more, Eamon, I'll scream.
Okay.
I think we talked about it before off the air, and I might not have said it. I mean, in the old days, the great days under Ferguson, when Scholes and Keane in particular, right? Did you ever see Keane play with a smile on his face?
Not really. No.
He had a scowl on his face all the time, because he's never happy with what was going on. Yeah. So it's a load of noise. But it is a cliche to say, well, the players are happier with this guy than Solskjaer than they were with Mourinho. There's no doubt about that. And in the first half, they did play well. Spurs actually looked tired in the first half. But in the second half, Spurs were brilliant.
They were,
they were brilliant. And if it hadn't been for De Gea, who must be the best goalkeeper in the world, actually they would have got a hiding.
Yeah, they would. I mean, Pochettino said after the game that the second half performance by Spurs was the best 45 minutes in the 4.5 years that he's been at the club. But just for a moment to stick with United, Rashford in particular, I think both of us have always thought he has the potential to be a really outstanding player, a top player. And to be fair to Gareth Southgate, he appears to have recognised that. He's played him and played him in his right position for England. But Rashford has killer pace. He wasn't really often in the team. He was never in the team because as a centre forward, he would be playing out wide. But Solskjær has liberated him. And also, and interestingly, Pogba, he's found a position to allow Pogba to be a useful player for the team, as was demonstrated by the first goal yesterday. And Pogba is another beneficiary of the absence of fear. And when you consider that Pogba, the way he was treated by Mourinho, first of all, he dropped him, then he criticised him publicly, then he made him captain, then he dropped him again. I mean, I'm not saying that Pogba's worth 100 million, John, but he played well yesterday.
Well, he played okay. I keep seeing it in the television. When he has the win and he made a good pass for the goal. He played well.
Yeah.
No matter what, but it's all hype now surrounding Pogba. He's got people are talking the way they're talking.
Yeah.
Is as if he's a great. He is what he is, and I think Solskjær has been very, very intelligent. I don't know whether he's meant to do it, but he's released Pogba from any responsibility around the middle of the pitch because he doesn't know how to play with responsibility. So they give him a free role, as we would call it, free role.
Yeah.
And it has worked for him. Pogba is playing better now for United than he has under Mourinho. Now, with Mourinho, he was playing in the middle of the field all the time. He was supposed to be the central midfield player to make things happen. He can't do that. So I think Solskjær obviously has recognised it and has given him a position where he doesn't have any responsibility. So he's getting the best out of Pogba, of what Pogba has.
Yeah.
And in Mourinho's case, he handled it really, really badly, as he did with many other players in there, Eamon.
Yes.
He as you mentioned there, he humiliated Pogba.
Yes.
And then he gave him the captain. Then he humiliated him again.
Yes.
So he didn't know what way to treat him. And he picked on the wrong guy to do what he did with Pogba. And obviously, from Solskjaer's place, good luck to him. He has made that work. In Rashford's case, when Van Gaal came in, Van Gaal put him in the team straight away.
Yeah.
And he was brilliant. A great young fella. And since Mourinho came in, because Mourinho then had a go at him, and he seems to be a sensitive type of lad.
Yeah.
Funny enough, when he was released to play for England, he was a different player altogether.
Yes.
And now he's a different player altogether because he's as I say, putting her arm around him and playing him in his right position. And Rashford is a very, 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 very promising player, as we can see now. So it has been a big change since Solskjær come in. Mourinho did lose the dressing room, as they say nowadays, and the players, Rashford particularly, and Pogba, have improved under Solskjær. There's no doubt about that.
Now, the other person I think is significant, John, is Mike Phelan. Mike Phelan was a Manchester United player, but he was there with Ferguson as an assistant for quite a long period of time. I would say he has some input, and he's another sort of in-house guy who knows the way Manchester United has to work. Now, you played for United, played for a long time, played big games for them. There is a thing about Manchester United, and I think it affected Spurs yesterday, which I'll come to a reason in a minute. Manchester United's reputation, John, goes before them. They are a formidable proposition. There is a swagger. There is a belief at their best. And even when you played, the same thing applied. They had great players, but they could make opposition fear them.
Well, to be honest, Eamon, in my day, we didn't. There wasn't that many feared us, to be quite honest. I wasn't a good spell for Manchester United, but I know what you're saying. I think that there is a tradition there in the club, especially from Matt Busby's day, where Matt Busby freed players completely to play.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that, and that's a tradition in the club. But again, it's it has to be good managers that can do it, Eamon.
Oh, of course.
You know?
Yeah, but
You know,
it's an asset. Just to give you an example, we've often talked on the phone while we're watching a game, and they used to call it Fergie time. Teams would go there to get a lead, and they'd shrink, they'd retreat. And it was basically on the basis of United's reputation for never quitting and the fear of the Manchester United sort of myth, really. And it worked for Fergie, and he made it work for them. And that's a kind of...
Yeah, but he was great, though, right? He was a great manager to insist on that. I mean, they had other managers before who couldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to get the manager in. Of course, there's a tradition at Manchester United, but you have to have a manager who understands the tradition and is able to improve players and improve the team to make the most of that tradition. And Fergie had that. Fergie's time was obviously insisting on players to do the right thing right up to the last second of the game.
And always to believe that you could score.
Yeah, well, it was the right way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, there's a thing in the game. You know, you hear the pundits a lot now. I mean, they're 2 goals behind. What they got to do, they got to start pushing the fullbacks forward and all the cliches that go with it. Actually, what you got to do, and Ferguson obviously did it, was if it was the right thing to do in the first minute, it was the right thing to do in the last minute.
Yep.
And he obviously got that into the players and insisted upon it. Because the natural inclination of many players, as we know, Eamon, is to start hyping it into the box.
Yeah.
You know, like what Ferguson said, no, you don't do that. You keep going, and it became Fergie time. But that was the tradition with Manchester United under Busby as well.
Yes, it was.
Who started that? You know, there's no doubt about that. As you know, I felt that with Matt Busby before I left. But he was a great manager in doing what he did.
Yeah.
Was to insist on it. I mean, while I was there, the players weren't. I think it was a bad lot of players. One of the worst lot of players that Matt Busby ever had, I think, at that particular club. But he still insisted on doing what he believed in doing, was to play all the time with the freedom to play. There's no doubt about that, and no fear.
Right. And now let me stick with the idea of fear. I tell you what I made of the second half. As you said rightly, they were forced to make a change. Spurs. They took Sissoko off, which was no bad thing in terms of a passing game.
He got injured, Eamon. He got injured.
I know.
Which was fortunate.
It was. Now, they brought Eriksen back into midfield. They put on Lamela, who's an attacking player and a useful, but Eriksen got more involved. And they Manchester United have a very poor defence for a team, you know, who were challenging for a Champions League place, and they ripped them to shreds. Now, here's where I think the fear may have kicked in again. Harry Kane had 2 fantastic chances. The first one, he was one-on-one with De Gea. I've seen Harry Kane score those goals a million times, and he is clinical. Yesterday, he hit it straight at De Gea. I think he snatched at it a little bit. I think that's the Manchester United thing. Dele Alli in exactly the same position, one-on-one with De Gea. I mean, De Gea has played superbly, made 11 saves in the second half. But those 2 instances, I think, against another club, Kane and Ali would have scored. Can't prove it. I know I can hear you.
No.
Go on, say it.
I wouldn't go along with that at all. It was a day that they didn't do it. Kane is a terrific player. I wouldn't think that fear of Manchester. The big fear over the years of Manchester United, Eamon, was a fear that they could come back and do it, which they did indeed. I think in the situation, the Manchester United fear wouldn't be an issue yesterday. It was actually poor finishing from them on a day, which it can happen. It can happen to anybody, and De Gea being particularly good to get in the right positions to do it. I mean, you know, they weren't easy saves even from the distance win, and they could have been more clinical. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But I think it was just one of the days, and there was a couple of chances that De Gea saved where they were pretty. I mean, it's just an exceptional goalkeeper on a brilliant day.
I have to say that for United's goal, for Rashford's goal, Lloris was outside the near post. He was in the wrong position, and as you pointed out to me when we were watching it together, that Lloris had been on the edge of his box too far out before Pogba played Rashford in,
Exactly.
and he was scrambling to get back in, and in the scramble to get back into the right position, he got into the wrong position.
Exactly.
And
But you don't see the Gea doing that, Eamon. Do you know what I mean?
No,
like
no.
if Harry Kane or Dele Alli had the situation that Rashford, I think they would put it away. But I think it was just one of those days. I mean, he made saves that were really, really good efforts on the goal. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think players, if you're talking about the Manchester United fear, I think Kane and Dele Alli and whoever missed chances yesterday, I don't think that fear would be an issue in those situations.
Okay, that's one theory shot down. Now, here's the next, I suppose, challenge for Solskjær, and it's this. On the bench yesterday, he had Sanchez, Lukaku, Mata, and these are big players. We know how good Sanchez can be. We know how much Lukaku costs and how important a striker he can be. Mata's a very good player as well. He's got to find a way, hasn't he, John, to integrate these players or get the best out of, say, Sanchez. Now, Sanchez, he said, Solskjaer said on Friday, he's not ready yet, he's not fit yet, and he didn't look fit when he first went to United. I think he's got to find a way to play Sanchez where Martial played yesterday. I think Martial can be dangerous in the box and can be clinical as a finisher, but I don't think his all-round game matches Sanchez. It'll be interesting to see how they're level on points with Arsenal now in 5th position, but they need to get to the top 4, and there's a little 6-point gap they got to close with Chelsea. That has to be the next target, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, of course, they have to get up, try and get into for the Champions League next year. There's no doubt about that, which would be a good run in the position that he took over. As far as getting over, now he has to manage. You see, when he comes in like he has come in, obviously he's pally with all the players, and after like whatever it's 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Now you really have to manage, because now you have to make decisions that either players come in the team or they don't come in. It's a honeymoon period for him, which is great, and he's making the most of it. Now let's get the stage with Sanchez, Lukaku, Mata, because as you know as an ex-player, and we all know, when you're out of the team, Eamon, you're not great friends with the manager.
No.
Now you start falling out, and he hasn't been in the position yet where he could fall out with players, which is great. But as you said there, with Martin, Lukaku, Sanchez and other players, now he's got to make decisions.
Yes.
Say he decides to put Mata in and he leaves Herrera out. Herrera's not going to be happy. So it's very difficult to please everybody in football. In fact, the great managers don't try to please anybody. They do what's best for the club. But in doing that, then you do fall out with players. So he hasn't got himself into that position yet, Solskjaer, because it's early days. So we have to wait and see exactly how he responds and how the players respond, but he has to make these decisions.
Yeah, how would you do it, John? I mean, if you had the Sanchez that we were watching at Arsenal, a player that was a huge player for Arsenal, huge player for Chile. This guy's a very, very good player, John.
Yeah, I think he's a great player. I thought he was a great signing for Manchester United.
Yeah, so finding a way to get, the best out of him, B, to get his morale up and to get him hungry, and C, to find a position in the team. I'd say his best position is where Martial played yesterday, but that's a challenge, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's management, Damon.
Yeah.
You know, when Ferguson came into Manchester United, they were in rag order, really, and it took him a long time to do it, but he did it because he was making the right decisions here. A few bad decisions along the way, I'm sure Solskjaer will, but that's what good managers do, and they have a connection with the player. I mean, Sanchez is a terrific player, as we know. He played there last week, but he's short of match fitness now, Eamon. Now now Solskjaer has a decision. Do I put him in for a half hour? Do I put him in for half a match to get his match fitness right? And because you can't judge him on the player that's going to play for Manchester United without getting that match fitness. So that's a problem, and I'm sure he knows that, obviously, because he hasn't played him straight away. But think Sanchez, as you said there, at his best, he'd be in that team. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean
he's got to find a way to do it. You know, he's got to get his fitness right first. He's been out for a long time.
Yeah. Now, the next big challenge apart from aiming for a top 4 place. They have PSG in the Champions League, and PSG, I've watched them, John, and I watched a French game last night between Monaco and Marseille, Thierry Henry's team. It's a poor league. Now, this is a game United really will take seriously, of course. Champions League, last 16, they have a chance. If he can integrate Sanchez, for example, possibly Lukaku into the team, because they're going to have to score goals because their defence is terrible. I mean, Spurs ripped them to shreds yesterday, didn't they? The defence, Lindelof, Young playing right back, Jones and Shaw, and just in front of them, really, very little protection. You know, they've got Matic and Herrera, which isn't a lot of protection. They are going to get killed by the better teams unless they get this sorted at the back.
Well, there's no doubt about that, Eamon. You know, you see, if we talk about the Manchester United way, and it obviously works for them, worked yesterday when they were going forward and were go, like a bit like Liverpool. Then you have to. That's the way you defend.
Yeah.
Like once Spurs got at them, Eamon, then they didn't have the defenders to cope with it, to be quite honest. And it's very difficult to stay on top for 90 minutes. So, the big thing is they've got to get defenders in.
Yep.
They've got to get defenders in. I mean, Solskjær can only do what he's doing with the players he has at his disposal. And then whoever's going to come in, whether it be Solskjær or there in the summer, is to make the big signings in the defensive players. But I think all they got to hope for is that the players like Rashford and all the players they have up front, and get Sanchez back to the best, that they have so much the ball that they're not going to have to depend on the defence. That's the only thing they can go on.